Okay, so Wales against Australia. What a match. What a thumping for Australia. They've lost 40 points to 6 in Lyon against Wales. Now, Wales were pretty good. There's a few areas I think Wales can work on. Um, this is the same side that ran out today that played Fiji and were in a contest against Fiji. It just shows how well Fiji actually played in that game and how lucky Wales actually got against Fiji, because Fiji battered Australia as well physically. Australia are in trouble, big trouble. But the first half, there was a couple of key momentum swings. Now, second half, Australia completely melt down. Penalty count goes through the roof. There's a drop goal in there. There's a couple of tries in there as well. Wales don't get the bonus point, but I don't think they need the bonus point because they've qualified for the quarterfinals. They're the first team to officially book their place in the next round. Australia look likely they're going home. They've only got Portugal left to play, and with the way Australia defended, Portugal ball in hand looked dangerous. That's not going to be that could be a potential upset. I honestly believe Australia-Portugal could be a potential upset, and I'm not even joking. The morale in this Australia side's clearly at rock bottom. They're not very good defensively. There's not much structure defensively. They've got issues with the set piece. Just everything went wrong for Australia, but everything's been going wrong for Australia for quite some time. Now, on the Wales side of things, the only area where I see a big cause of concern is sometimes at the breakdown, when they're recycling the ball, they form these long caterpillars. They looked best with quick ball. When that slowed it down, that allowed Australia to hang around in the game. Now, the first half, it's 16-6 at half time, but there's a period for about 15 minutes where Australia are on top and they get a couple of penalties. They've had a few line breaks and they're looking a bit dangerous ball in hand. And they are testing the Welsh defence. But Gareth Davies scores the opening try on 3 minutes and Dan Biggar converts. And you're thinking, okay, this Australian side defensively, their structures aren't very good. They're not confident, the man on the inside and the man on the outside. There is a lack of confidence defensively with this Australian side. They look a bit nervous. And you're thinking they could potentially steamroll Australia. And they probably should have. But they allow Australia back into the game. Australia gained some dominance. The fact Australia had more ball than Wales. Yep, Australia had more ball, they had more possession, more territory, yet they've managed to lose the game 40 points to 6. Just let that sink in. But Donaldson slots 2 penalties on 9 minutes and 14 minutes. And then the overthrow from the line-out. This is the momentum swing. This, I think, frazzles Australia upstairs. They lose their cool. They get a penalty in their half. They kick the touch. They get the line-out. They overthrow the line-out. Wales go down the other end of the field. Now, Australia don't concede any more tries in the first half, but that's the momentum swing. The key thing to come out this first half is Dan Biggar's shoulder injury. It looks like a pec injury. That could be tournament over for him. It depends if he's just strained it, if he's tweaked his rotary cuff, or if he's actually fully torn his pec. Scans will reveal that. He looked very sore on the bench. He tried to soldier on bravely, but no, not with a pec injury. You don't want to risk that. That can be 6 to 9 months out, honestly. It requires surgery. That can be a lengthy time out of the game. Anscombe comes on. Now, Anscombe does miss a couple of kicks tonight. I think him being thrown on early is unexpected, obviously. He can play at fullback and at fly half, depending on how the game's going. They've had to obviously throw him on at fly half, and he's had a masterclass. Probably played the best game of his career, in my opinion, in a Welsh shirt. He slots 3 penalties in the first half from 21, 28, 39 minutes. Just keep that scoreboard ticking over as Australia's discipline's lacking. Australia have a lot of ball, but they're giving away penalties at the breakdown when they're in possession. Penalties, the scrum, early on, the scrum had a bit of dominance, then the scrum falls apart, the line-out falls apart. Australia are all over the place, their handling's gone. But they're still in the game at 16-6, because it is still a scrappy game. It's just Anscombe, instead of going for touch, he's discussing with the senior leadership group, Morgan, the captain, what do we do? We'll go for points, we'll just keep it ticking over. We just need to get the win first and foremost, which is important. So it's 16-6 at half-time. The second half, it's all Wales. Now, there are still issues with the Welsh game. The long, slow breakdowns where they form the caterpillar, they need to do that a little bit less, because when they had quick ball, Australia couldn't cope with them. When they slowed it down, it allowed Australia to still have a defensive line. But when they sped that ball up, Australia just could not cope with them. They could have and should have put another 20, 30, maybe 40 points on this Australian side. They could have put 80 past Australia today, and I'm not joking on that. This Australian side completely fell apart in the second half. They started to fall apart in the first half, but the second half, it is a complete and utter collapse. Anscombe slots a penalty pretty much straight after half-time on 43 minutes. The Tompkins try, that's a great chip ahead. The Australian defence is all over the place. There's space in behind. It's a little chip over the top. He goes under. He goes over. Anscombe converts that, and then there's a couple more penalties. Just Anscombe keeping that scoreboard ticking over. Obviously, could have gone for touch. They could have gone for the bonus point. They don't need the bonus point. I think they've realised they've got Australia at this point. It's death by 1,000 cuts. So Anscombe slots penalties on 52 and 60 minutes. Then there's a period where they have a lot of ball and they're not getting any traction. Australia are finally standing up defensively. They realise they've got to get the ball back and score. But then the drop goal. We don't see enough drop goals anymore. Of course, we've seen a fair few in this World Cup, but in general, drop goals are not dying out, but they're not as common as they used to be. Anscombe slots a drop goal because you've got to keep the scoreboard ticking over. Australia have been disciplined in defence for about 10 minutes. Multi-phase. They're not getting anywhere. Australia have basically decided to form a brick wall for 10 minutes, and it's a very well taken drop goal. It, again, keeps that scoreboard ticking over, and I think when he slots that drop goal, I mean, it's not the best drop goal in the world. It's a bit of a scruffy one, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He's decided to not even drop in the pocket. He's pretty flat when he takes that drop goal. He's not actually as deep in the pocket as you would think, but he decides to take it on the off chance. Well, we need to do something. Slots it, and that I think that's the moment Australia are completely, they fall apart. Then Morgan's try from a line out. I mean that puts a gloss on it. I think certain areas, certain handling areas, and the breakdown, they could speed it up. Handling areas, I think they were pushing it a little bit, but Australia was so bad. Defensively all over the place. In attack in the second half, they had nothing. They couldn't hold on to the ball for more than a phase or two. It was just dreadful. I mean, Eddie Jones is not the saviour for this team. A lot of debate about his selections for the squad, leaving players out who could have had a positive impact on this game and could have potentially helped this Australian side. Quade Cooper, for example, is one. Hooper is another one who've been left back in Australia. Very young team for test level. The youngest Australian side at a World Cup ever. Few veterans in there, but not enough. Not enough. Donaldson was hoiked early in the second half. He's had a dreadful game, especially in the second half. And towards the end of the first half, it wasn't good from him. Some of their big ball runners, handling let them down. Passing was poor. This Wales side did play well. Let's not kid ourselves. This Welsh side, they got their tactics right. Gatland's got their tactics right. Defensively, they stood up really well. But Australia's attack was so disjointed. It was easier to defend as the game wore on. Early on, when Australia, are in the game with Donaldson sorts the two penalties, Australia's attack was actually causing Wales problems. But as the game wore on, their attack became very one-up runner, desperate. And by the end, they were just, I think, glad for the final whistle to go. Wales could and should have put another 20 to 40 points on this Australian side. This Australian side, I've never seen a Wallabies side so bad. So bad. I mean, yeah, Australian rugby union is not where it was in the 90s and the early 2000s when they were one of the best teams in the world. But this Australian side is dreadful. Rugby Australia's got problems. I know Welsh Rugby Union's got problems as well with finances and where the game's going and the game domestically in Wales, but they continue to put performances on the field in adversity. Australia completely melted down. Big name players didn't perform. Scrum was hopeless. Line out was hopeless. Defence was hopeless. Penalty count all over the place, and I think Eddie Jones, his time is up as a head coach. I cannot see him keeping hold of his job past this World Cup. Cannot see it. A lot of questions have to be asked of Rugby Australia and what's going on domestically. So there we go. Wales record-breaking win over Australia. Australia, Christ, they're going home. It doesn't matter what they do against Portugal. I think Portugal could upset them. The way Australia defended in Portugal's you know, completely ridiculous attack where they just run everything. And they play a high-paced, fast-paced, quick breakdown game. Australia don't know they can cope with that. And Portugal, with their draw against Georgia and how they performed, they could potentially upset Australia. I'm not even joking. I think the Portuguese play with an exuberance that I don't think this Australian side can counter with how they attack. Now, okay, if Australia can sort their attack out, they could get a bonus point win, but it's not going to be enough because I think Fiji are going to have too much for Georgia, and therefore Australia are going home. And absolutely dreadful, dreadful. Look, to be fair, there's a couple of groups of death, like the South Africa group and this group. There's a couple of pools of death, as I like to say, but absolutely diabolical by Australia. Wales played well, areas for improvement, but this Australian side made them look world class. And don't get me wrong, Wales were good today, but in the other games so far, the Fiji game, they and the Portugal game, they weren't looking as that great. I think they were tested in those games. Australia didn't test them today. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I will have some more content for you very, very soon.